also ruled an increase in violent attacks before HALT took effect could not impact the law, which took effect April 1st. It is unclear if the union will appeal the decision. In response to the ruling, Correctional Officers Union President Michael Powers said, "We filed the lawsuit last year before HALT took effect because of our grave concern that increased leniency in prisons would lead to more violence against staff and other inmates. That fear has become reality for us. Unfortunately, the court did not agree with our arguments. Despite the ruling, we will continue our campaign to repeal HALT by organizing our membership to vote out those in the legislature who supported the act." Victor Pate, a formerly incarcerated man from Queens, survived several stints in solitary housing over his 15 combined years in prison on robbery and weapons possession charges. Once, Pate was sentenced to time in solitary confinement for having too many clean sheets stashed under his bed. He knows others sentenced to isolation for having too many stamps or helping another incarcerated person with their legal work.
People are disciplined that have mental health issues, and DOC's answer to that is segregation, separation, and isolation, which in fact, the only thing that does is exacerbates the circumstances. It makes people more violent, and it causes people to act out even more.
HALT implements alternative rehabilitative measures for people in prison instead of time in a special housing unit, and mandates people held in solitary receive programming by therapeutic staff 5 days per week. Advocates are calling for greater oversight after people in prison have reported the State Department of Correction and Community Supervision is failing to implement the state's new solitary confinement rules. In a statement, the department said, "DOCS was well positioned with policies and infrastructure changes at the time the new law took effect. Since that time, the department has seen an uptick in violence to both staff and the incarcerated population. It is our hope that the out-of-cell programming offered in the residential rehabilitation units as a result of this law will have a positive effect on the population and lead to safer correctional facilities across the state." Kate Lisa, Spectrum News.
No federal court takeover of Rikers. That is, at least for now. Yesterday, a judge accepted the city's plan to fix the staffing and security crisis at the jail, but warned if urgently needed changes are not made, all bets are off. Joining us right now is Department of Correction Commissioner Louis Molina. Good to have you with us, Commissioner.
Thank you for having me.
Were you surprised by this judgment? Because a lot of people were taking into account the horrendous conditions there, the amount of fatalities even within the last 3 weeks. 2 prisoners, there's been a death with them. We all thought the feds would take it over, but you didn't.
So I didn't. We feel very confident under the Mayor Adams' leadership, everything that he's done to create an interagency task force under the executive order. Many of the things in the action plan we began doing because it was the right thing to do in order to move the department forward. So we were confident that we were putting the best case forward so that we can give the judge confidence in our ability to give us more time to reform the department.
When you talk about some of these changes, you've seen a decline in stabbings as well as slashing, a decrease in the staff absenteeism, over 200 or 2,000 weapons seized or contraband. What else?
Yes, so like you said, our slashing and stabbings have come down significantly. In May, that decrease was 44%. Month to date, that decrease is 6%. We have staff going back to doing practical security operations. Like you've noted, we've had over 2,000 contraband weapons seized, so we're lessening the tools available that can be used to do slashings and stabbings. Staff is back. Our absentee rate has decreased 40%. So over 1,400 officers have come back to work. We're still not where we want to be. We still have a long road ahead of us, but we've done a lot to bring stabilization to the department over the last 6 months.
We've heard at times the jail is swelling with people that are in custody. We know that the mayor now has implemented new policing policies. There are more arrests that are coming in. Do you have room at the jail for an influx of more prisoners?
So when you think about our criminal justice system, it's not just the jail, it's the courts that are involved as well. Providers that can provide alternatives to incarceration. Our average population has been around 54 to 5,500 individuals at any one time. Majority of that detainees. So as courts start to stabilize and we see more courts, our production to individuals at courts has improved. So we'll start to have a more robust system to handle the influx of bodies if that happens.
I'm just wondering about the budget as well, because I know the mayor wants to also have more security coming in, almost 600 different officers coming in. Is that in the budget for the city?
We didn't get that in the budget. The city council took that out of the budget. A lot of that was aligned to do our risk management accountability system, but we had made a commitment to start that and operationalize that beginning July 1. We're still on track to do that, and we're able to do that because we're reevaluating where staff are assigned so that they're in detainee-facing positions. In addition to that, with the over 1,400 officers that have come back to work, we do have the ability to be able to do that.
When we look at outside contractors that Rikers calls in, whether it's for health agencies or extra security, telephones, everything, do you need to reassess all of that, downsize, because that takes money as well?
Sure. So I think, first of all, when it comes to security operations on Rikers Island, that is the job of correctional officers and our uniform staff. So that is not anything we would ever outsource to anyone. When it comes to other providers that come in, we have a lot of strategic partners that help us provide services to the incarcerated population, like Exodus, FedCap, the Fortune Society, and their partnership with us is very strategic because when people are released from Rikers, we want them to have a continuum of care so that they don't recidivate.
You have 5 months to do this, right?
Well, in 5 months, we're going to be a lot better than where we are today. It took a decade to get to this point. So we're going to need some time to do things, but I think as we show progress to the courts, we show progress to the federal monitor, we're going to show that myself, under the leadership of Mayor Adams, have the ability to turn the Department of Corrections around.
All right. Commissioner Luis Molina joining us on the 6 o'clock news. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
Great to
having
have you
me.
on.
Thank you.
Thousands, mostly minorities, are locked up. In this era of mass incarceration, one group is trying to stop a cycle that has caused massive damage. The tough on drugs policies of the 80s set the stage for mass incarceration. According to the Sentencing Project, 2 million people are in custody. That's nearly a 500% increase over 40 years.
We abolished slavery, but it really turned into the modern day slavery.
Since 2015, Dr. Jacqueline Walker's Mann Foundation has worked to break the constellation of problems that surrounds mass incarceration.
Shots right there, bang.
Last year, 10 on Your Side took you to a holiday event for prisoners and the children they leave behind.
They just were a part of that collateral damage piece because they're associated with you, and that really hurts, and that kind of goes back to that brokenness of families being broken apart because of a crime that they didn't have anything to do with.
All this while working behind the bars to offer restoration and a path to a meaningful future. Through community and family support, the Mann Foundation hopes to break the cycle.
They always say they need help with jobs. They need help with restoring relationships. They need help with kind of breaking the cycle of this recidivism because some of them, their parents or another family member has also been incarcerated.
Dr. Walker's organization helps prisoners create resumes. She's also calling on employers to offer more flexibility in hiring those with a criminal record. For more information on the Mann Foundation, see this story on wavy.com.
A juvenile facility in Louisiana is accused of violating the civil rights of minors. Now, advocates and families are speaking out.
He's basically being housed like a death row inmate.
Right now, he's been in 24-hour solitary.
NBC News, ProPublica, and the Marshall Project conducted a 4-month-long investigation into the Acadiana Center for Youth in St. Martinville. What critics call a child prison run by Louisiana's Office of Juvenile Justice, or OJJ.
We're told not many people have seen it, so we will see how this goes.
So we're not able to see or...
No, ma'am. I'm sorry.
We've never been inside, but obtained exclusive video from a former St. Martinville staff member. And what we've heard is disturbing.
His nose is bleeding. There's blood all over the floor. Being beat up right now.
According to OJJ incident reports and firsthand accounts, the 24-cell juvenile facility held minors in cells for 23 or at times 24 hours a day, subdued teens with police-style maneuvers, and at times held minors in shackles or what the facility calls leg irons outside their cells. According to the OJJ, most of the juveniles are black. St. Martinville also failed to provide education to minors for at least 3 months.
We were working to get that established the entire time. That was not something that we were just being negligent on. All of things that we are providing them by law are on board now.
But those who've been inside say conditions are unacceptable. Rashad, a black 16-year-old, is one of them. This is his lawyer.
I believe that the conditions under which he was being confined violated his rights.
We're using Rashad's middle name to protect his identity. He was moved to St. Martinville last summer.
He was not receiving the substance abuse counseling that had been ordered by the court.
The judge immediately ordered he be removed from the facility. But today, there are still youth at St. Martinville, like 16-year-old Ben. This is his bedroom. He hasn't been in it for 2 years.
Do you have access to school right now?
No, ma'am.
Ben was sentenced to state custody in 2020 and moved to St. Martinville in December.
Even worksheets, nothing to do at all, no school at all?
Sometimes, like, I only got them once.
There are no teachers? You haven't seen any teachers there?
No.
The treatment of these youth violates widely accepted standards for juvenile detention. Ben's mother, Rebecca McDonald, says she wasn't informed her son had been moved to St. Martinville for 3 weeks. When she finally heard his voice,
And he would be crying. And my son is not that type of person, so I knew something was up. They treat them like dogs.
Louisiana's Juvenile Justice Reform Act Implementation Commission also says they were not formally notified about the facility.
It was opened in a shroud of secrecy
Until advocates raised the issue.
The OJJ declined multiple requests to tour the facility and denied a count of extended solitary confinement and use of shackles outside cells. The OJJ called the facility a, quote, temporary fix used for youth who are, quote, not therapy ready.
We don't have the facilities nor the manpower to hold them in those dormitory settings.
But a former St. Martinville staff member whose identity has been concealed disagrees and called out staff treatment of minors.
A lot of them lack basic respect. They treat those kids like crap. One guy got in trouble for pepper spraying one of those kids. Really think that this facility is the worst possible thing as it runs now.
There are at least 31 youth who have been through the facility. On at least 2 occasions, youth harmed themselves, with multiple instances of minors escaping.
In the case of Rashad, his guardian remains concerned about his mental well-being since release. Ben remains in the facility, now facing new charges. His mother hoping for his release or transfer.
But does he have aspirations, beyond what he's got himself into?
He used to. I don't know if he still does.
In March of last year, Chicago police chased 13-year-old Adam Toledo down a little village alley. He is shot to death a split second after he tosses a gun behind a fence. 2 days later, 22-year-old Anthony Alvarez is killed by police under similar circumstances in Portage Park. Now a CPD foot pursuit policy developed in the wake of those shootings has been finalized.
So the new policy that we put out today is clearer for officers, and I think it's a lot easier to understand.
According to the new policy, an officer should only start or continue a pursuit if there is probable cause for arrest. Body cams must be activated. Pursuits are prohibited for minor traffic violations and can be terminated at any time by supervisors. Finally, officers must consider alternatives.
The impacts on crime has been studied, and we can look back at foot pursuit policies. It's made officers safer, and it's made the community safer.
It also helps bring the city into compliance with a federal consent decree.
Fundamentally, what this comes down to is having a policy that makes sense. This has now been signed off on by the judge, by the monitor, by the attorney general. So I think it's a very solid plan.
But in the past, critics of the policy have said it keeps cops from doing their jobs.
Yeah, you got to do your job constitutionally.
Training on the new foot pursuit policy is expected to begin in the next couple of weeks and be completed by the end of the summer. At 35th and Michigan, Charlie Wojciechowski, NBC 5 News.
A federal judge has dismissed a challenge that was originally filed by the state's Corrections Officers Union last year, seeking to get the HALT Act repealed. HALT stands for Humane Alternatives for Long Term Solitary Confinement. NYSCOBA, the union representing our state's corrections officers, says the law limits, or in some cases eliminates, the ability to place inmates in special housing units. The union petitioned to overturn the law, arguing it removes disciplinary action and increases the likelihood of prison assaults and violent incidents, which they say have skyrocketed. The court ruled a potential risk is not enough to repeal a law. And Brian Hluska, NYS-GOBA's Central Regional Vice President, did release the following statement saying, quote, "Unfortunately, the court did not agree with our arguments. Despite the ruling, we will continue our campaign to repeal HALT by organizing our membership to vote out those in the legislature who supported the act. Once the legislature is back in session, we will focus our efforts on repealing HALT or amending HALT to strike out the dangerous portions."
Enter Candela's Farm and Greenhouse.
A family is grieving after their loved one, an inmate in the Montgomery County Jail, died, allegedly while in solitary confinement. The man's family now looking for answers as they claim the jail did nothing to help. ABC 36's Danielle Seda has more from the family and what the jail has to say about what happened.
The family of 46-year-old Kevin Hall is pointing a finger at the Montgomery County Regional Jail, where Hall spent his last moments. According to his family, Hall was arrested last week and should have been released the next day. But in court, Hall's name was never called. The family was told that Hall had allegedly resisted arrest the night police pulled him over. Then Wednesday night, Hall called his mom for the very last time.
He called her and he said, "Mom, I'm sick. I'm very, very sick.
I have really bad chest pains.
Yeah.
My stomach is absolutely killing me."
So when my sister inquired, they said that the nurse had checked him out and that he was okay. And then we find out Thursday morning that Kevin had passed away and had been put in solitary confinement.
While his family says an autopsy report may take weeks, they knew he was ill.
We've been told that there is heart issues, there was blockages or blockage, and the term that we've heard is like half of his stomach was gone due to ulcers. So it's without question that Kevin was sick and suffering.
And he needed medical attention.
And he needed medical help, and for whatever reason, he didn't get it.
ABC 36 reached out to the Montgomery County Jail, but was told it's an open investigation and there would be no further comment. Hall was laid to rest Tuesday as his family still waits for answers. In Montgomery County, Danielle Seda, ABC 36 News.
Mayor Adams was at Rikers Island today announcing progress in a violence crackdown after several inmate deaths since the beginning of the year. CBS 2's Dave Carlin has the story from inside the city jail.
Look at this. This is only an example. This is an example of what they retrieved.
The mayor pointing out plexiglass busted out of windows and turned into knives, drugs, cigarettes, and other contraband. Rooted out of Rikers Island now that the Adams administration gave the green light for searches, as seen in these Department of Correction images, to come roaring back. More than 2,700 weapons and contraband all recovered since the end of February.
Tactical search operations work, and we're going to continue to do them. Since we resumed tactical search operation in February, slashings and stabbings have declined by 63%.
Rikers Island remains in New York City control after a federal judge saw enough progress to avoid the feds taking over. Improvements underway include covering plexiglass with metal coverings, so inmates can't get their hands on the knife-making material. About 20% of the windows are retrofitted.
The plexiglass is behind them. It's in between. Oh, it's in between. It's in between, yeah.
Staffing remains a problem at Rikers. With total workers at 7,000, the average for daily sick-outs is 900. But the mayor said with this taxing and dangerous a job, having many people out injured or ill is to be expected.
The job you are doing, people don't want to do. Yet you do it every day.
Benny Bossio is the Correction Officers Benevolent Association president. Here's what he said about the failed attempt to get more officers approved in the budget.
Look, I give the mayor credit. I give credit when credit is due. He put the amount of officers in the budget, so we're grateful for that. And, you know, our fight is with the city council, and shame on them for not giving us the resources that we need to make everybody safe in our facilities.
He says the progress at Rikers Island, while appreciated, is just not enough. Dave Carlin, CBS 2 News.
Mayor Adams did not go into any detail about the 8 deaths in city jails so far this year. The Legal Aid Society responded with this statement: the extraordinarily high death rate on Mayor Adams' watch and the suffering of all who are kept in abysmal conditions inside are a humanitarian crisis that this administration seems incapable of rectifying anytime soon.
Another show and tell by New York Mayor Adams involving confiscated weapons, but this time it wasn't guns from the streets of New York.
No, this time it was knives and contraband from the halls of Rikers Island. Thousands of items. How did they get inside a jail, a notorious jail?
Meanwhile, the mayor also with a show of support for correction officers who have been attacked in the past with these kinds of weapons.
And now fewer attacks than before. Eyewitness News reporter Joe Torres live at Rikers for us. Joe.
Bill protecting inmates, protecting themselves, dealing with staffing shortage throughout a global pandemic. Few people would argue that New York City's boldest have perhaps the most difficult job in the city. Well, today, the mayor came to Rikers Island to reassure them that his relationship with them is very different than their relationship with the previous administration. A first-hand up-close look this afternoon from Mayor Eric Adams at just a few of the roughly 2,700 shivs, shanks, and weapons recovered from Rikers Island since the end of February. Correction officers found the weapons during tactical searches, an operation recently reinstated by DOC Commissioner Luis Molina.
We find them sometimes in cell areas, sometimes we may find them in corridors. Sometimes we may find them on individual people as we're searching individuals randomly.
The mayor's visit comes 1 week after a federal judge approved the city's action plan to address ongoing safety concerns, staffing shortages, and overall operations at Rikers. The approval means no federal takeover of the jail. For the 7,000 DOC uniformed officers, the mayoral message was loud and clear.
This mayor is not going to tear you down. I acknowledge your job. I acknowledge what you do, and I'm saying thank you for what you do.
The mayor cited the return of 1,400 officers since Commissioner Molina's appointment and a sharp reduction in the number of slashings and assaults on staff. But the mayor also acknowledged much work lies ahead. This year alone, 9 people have died in DOC custody. The mayor faults the city council for failing to greenlight the hiring of 550 additional correction officers, and union leaders agree with him.
Shame on the city council for not approving these officers. Like, they talk a good game, but, we keep New York City safe, and we need support from our elected officials, and it seems like people have turned their back on us.
Now, according to the commissioner, there are, as of today, 900 uniformed COs, correction officers, still out sick. He said that's 40% less than last summer, and he says he's got right now no evidence to suggest those workers are faking their sickness.